G'day guys, how are you? I hope you're all doing very well. This afternoon I'm going to be doing a review of a horror film from the USA. Now I say USA, but I believe it's also French. So some people say it's a French horror film. I'm going to say it's an American horror film just for the sake of the review, but if I'm wrong, please feel free to correct me. So I actually believe it was filmed in Romania, but it has some French actors. It has a little bit of French language, but as I said, the director is American and some of the actors are American. So it's an American horror film released in the year 2013, directed by William Brent Bell, and this film is called Where. Now, it starts off in rural France, where a young family is brutally mutilated by what appears to be an animal. So as the investigation has taken place, they come to the conclusion that it was in fact a man that has killed these people, and he has been arrested. He is an absolute hulking figure. He's a massive individual, and they believe that he's responsible. But there is a lawyer who is willing to defend this guy because she believes that it was in fact an animal and that a human could not possibly do this. So she wants to save this guy. She interviews him, and she believes that he has this rare illness that causes him to be a hairy sort of man, and that although he is very intimidating, she still believes that he is innocent. But as the movie goes along, she starts to realise that maybe there is more to this man than she first thought, which puts her life in grave danger. So what happens at that point on? Something you're going to have to find out for yourself, because that's as far as I'm going with my synopsis. Now, my thoughts on Where. There were a lot of things I really liked about Where, and unfortunately there were a few things I didn't like. Now, what I liked the most about Where is that it gets the mythology of werewolves. Now, if you're a fan of werewolves, you're no doubt being bitterly disappointed with Twilight, who don't portray werewolves in an animalistic way, portrays werewolves, and vampires for that matter, as something of a caring sort of, a being that has feelings. You know, when they transform, they can transform back, and they feel like they have a lot of control, and it makes a mockery of the werewolf mythology. And I've said in the past that, werewolves are, strong creatures. They're horrific creatures that when they've turned, they've got no control. They might love somebody in human form, but when they turn, they're just an animal. And basically that's what a werewolf is. The same with a vampire, is that they turn into a monster. They can't be controlled. So Twilight made a mockery of that, but before that you've got the classics of An American Werewolf in London. You've got recent films like Dog Soldiers, where they get that sort of ferocious nature of a werewolf. And that's what Where does. It brings it back. It brings back the good old days of the ferocious animal. And I thought that the fact that this movie was very brutal, it was just very nasty, it captured what a werewolf was all about. So as a werewolf fan, I was really pleased to see that Where doesn't pull any punches. It doesn't try and overshadow anything. It just shows you for what it is, a ferocious beast. There's a lot of gore in the film. There's a lot of brutal violence, and I thought it just paid a tribute to the werewolf films of yesteryear. So I really liked that aspect of it. I thought the slow build-up that the film had was very good. I thought the villain really worked well in the film. It was a massive guy, and I love the fact that even though you don't know for sure if this guy was something other than a human being, he was a menace. You could feel that if he was going to get angry, there was no one that could stop him. So although nothing much is happening when he's on screen, he demands your attention because he is just a very intimidating presence. And that's what I think that the film worked to some degree, is that the villain, or the so-called villain, was really intimidating. It was the stuff you couldn't see. He didn't even have to talk for you to be intimidated by this guy. So the start of the film really works well. I like the fact that the lawyer comes into it. A lot of people didn't like the lawyer character, but I liked her. I thought she does a good job. She's trying to defend this guy, but then she realises that maybe there is more. I thought the level of mystery in the first half of the film worked really well, and it promises a very good payoff. And the payoff is very satisfying, but unfortunately for me, I thought when it comes time for the payoff, there was some cheap CGI effects, and there was a twist right at the end that I thought was completely unnecessary. It gave the feeling of a Hollywood film, whereas the other parts of the movie, it felt like a French horror film. So it's got a European horror and it's got a Hollywood horror, but unfortunately the Hollywood horror kind of destroys the momentum that the French horror part had going for it. And that's why I feel European horror films are so much better than Hollywood horror, because Hollywood always try to do the twist, always tries to pull the rug from under you and give you something that really wasn't necessary. And unfortunately for me, that's what hurt Where the most, was that, there are some cheap digital effects which I didn't really mind, but it's that really cheap twist at the end that you've seen a million times before. And that's unfortunate, because Where was a very unique sort of tale It does get the werewolf mythology. I thought the acting was good. I love the villain, as I said, and it snowballs into something that is catastrophic, that is uncontrollable. But when it comes time for that payoff, I just felt that it should have been a lot better. There was some stuff that was ridiculous, and I thought it was just put in there for the sake of being a twist. When the movie didn't need a twist, it just needed to be a simple story. And unfortunately, these days, simple stories, I don't know whether directors are scared of them and they think it won't sell, but I would like the day where a really good horror film comes along where it doesn't need to trick the audience, it doesn't need to shock the audience. Because ever since M. Night Shyamalan's Sixth Sense, everyone thinks that they have to do the same sort of thing. But the Sixth Sense was so unique because no one was expecting that. But when you come into a horror film expecting a twist of the same sort of nature, it just doesn't have the impact, and it comes across as a deterrent rather than something that you want to really see. So overall, I love the fact that it was set in France and some of the actors spoke in French, so you have to contend with a few subtitles, and I think that's paying respect to that actual particular place in the world, and I think it gives you a sense of realism that it is actually taking place in France. Now, a lot of other films are set in foreign countries, but they're speaking English, so you don't get the sense that you're in another country, and it almost feels like an insult to that particular country. So I like the fact that they speak French. It gives it a certain sense of realism, and overall I thought it was a fairly decent werewolf tale, but it would have been a lot better with a stronger ending. But having said that, it is definitely a werewolf film that is going to please genuine werewolf fans, and as a result of that, I'm going to give it 3.5 stars. Alright guys, that's my review. Hope you enjoyed it. Till next time, keep watching movies, and I'll see you later. Bye.